I'm David Reaves from David Reaves Audio. This is the Zen 10. It's a really cool AGC that has 10 separate processors that are programmable to do multiple things. We're going to take a look at the GUI here, the graphical user interface. We have a meter for every one of the 10 processors. They're separated into, in this case, 5 bands of 2 channels apiece. 3 of the bands are set up as left plus right, left minus right matrix, and 2 of the other bands are set up as normal stereo left and right. Here's the operating interface. First thing that happens is you come in and you set your audio reference, the operating reference, to whatever the operating level is in your plant. Normally it'll be like -18 to -22, -24. You set it here, and then this becomes your 0 point. The 0 point on the meters is your operating level. Everything that happens to the left is turning the levels down. Everything that happens to the right is turning the levels up. You have a balance control for the inputs and a high pass filter, which is also a resonant emphasis on the lowest frequencies of around 37 to 40 hertz. The output levels are set here for analog, digital, and Dante. Oh, like most things here, we have a default button. If you get into trouble, always just click on the default. It's like going home. You're right back to a normal starting point. Here we set the number of bands. It can go from 1 to 5 bands. Normally, you would use what's appropriate for your programming. If you're running pop or rock or something with a lot of activity, then you may want to run more bands, but you could run fewer if your programming is classical or jazz or something that requires a lot of more spectral balance that keeps the spectrum the same as the original. Like I said before, 2 of the bands are operating as stereo left and right, and 3 of the bands are operating in a matrix. This is the lowest band. It's set up in a matrix, and it's actually having its stereo signal turned off so that the signal is entirely mono. The left plus right is by itself on the base. This allows less distortion in multipath situations on FM radio, so this can be an advantage. But you can always turn it back on to stereo if that's what you require. In each of the cases here, we can disable or enable the linking between the 2 channels of control. In the case of stereo, that would be left and right. And in the case of matrix, that would be left plus right, controlling how far apart you allow the left minus right to add more gain. And of course, you have your default button here if you want to get back to the factory settings. Input drive is pretty self-explanatory. This is how much is coming into each of the 5 bands of processing. The ratio sets the ratio for the stereo and for the left plus right. Left minus right has its own ratio control so that you can either emphasize or de-emphasize the amount of processing going on in the left minus right. When everything is quiet and there's no audio for a particular length of time, you set it here to return the controls to 0 and go to a neutral starting point ready for whatever incoming audio may come. Release gate threshold sets the amount of the threshold where you determine the audio is useful or not useful. If it's below this threshold, the processor will not pick up that level. If it's above, then it's ready to process. Release timing is how fast the control releases, up to 20 dB per second or as slow as 0.5 dB per second. And it's on a logarithmic scale, so it's very easy to find the proper speed. The Zen platform is where the magic happens. This is the distance between attack and release that allows the audio to come through with no processing if it's within this window. If you set a window of 5 dB, the audio has 5 dB of free movement where nothing happens to it. The processing steps aside and the audio comes through at the output pretty much the same as it was at the input. This control here called RMS crunch adds a little extra power to the signal. You can make things sound a little crunchier, a little punchier. It's not distortion, it's just an attack control that makes it sound punchier. That is a purely subjective thing, but it's useful if the programming is a little bit livelier required. Every control that we had for the left plus right also is available for the left minus right controls independently for those bands that are using left minus right control. The output gain is the summation of all the bands together. You can see that the matrix bands are in purple while the stereo bands are in green. Then, of course, the left minus right has its own outputs to allow you to determine how much left minus right you insert back into the main channels to be converted back to stereo and output. It's a really powerful processor. We think you're going to love it. It's a lot of work and it was a lot of fun to make. If you need information, you can contact aquabroadcast.co.uk and get all the information you need. Thanks for watching.